Hello, everyone. Welcome to Schrett Takes. I'm Mike Schrett, your host of this podcast, and I'm really glad to be joined here by Jack Betts, wide receiver for the football team, and also a guy who's been really involved in NIL. He has 35 deals. I don't know if you have any more of that you will be happy to share if you do. And it's really excited to have him on and kind of talk about a little bit about NIL and just kind of the season in general. So, Jack, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Of course. So let's get into NIL, right? So obviously to start off, what kind of got you into that space, right? Because obviously a lot of D3 guys are not necessarily getting into that space, and you really took full advantage of that. So talk a little bit about why you decided that was the avenue you wanted to get down.
Yeah, so I actually remember when the legislation was passed in July of 2021. I remember exactly where I was. I was actually in Colorado on a family vacation with my family. And so when I got this notification across the top of my screen that NIL legislation has been passed, I was sort of filled with this feeling of excitement, anticipation, because it's been talked about for so long, and it wasn't until just now, or just recently rather, that these things were passed. And so I was like, okay, this is a great opportunity for a lot of us athletes to finally get a cut of the check. But the reality did sit in that I am a Division III athlete. So I kind of let it sit for 6 months, kind of let deals fly by to all the Division I guys. Bryce Young obviously getting a bunch, Jackson Smith and Jigba. You got Quinn Ewers down in UT getting an Aston Martin. And so I let it sit for 6 months, and it wasn't until January of this year, actually, where I got really lucky, and my first company, my first deal, reached out to me. And so I mulled it over with my parents, and we kind of talked about it, and we said, what the heck, I'm taking a semester off. I took a gap semester, as you know, and I needed something to keep me busy. So that's there really wasn't any motivation until they reached out to me, and that's really where the ball got kicked off. And 35 plus deals later, 7 months later, here we are today.
Yeah. So obviously, look, that's going to take a lot of just kind of betting on yourself, obviously, and also trying to market yourself through a business perspective, right? Just because you're trying to obviously advocate for yourself to be reached out by these companies, or to just kind of portray an image of yourself that's going to be marketed well, right? So talk a little bit about, I don't know, just the motivation to kind of make yourself someone that is marketable, or get into something like marketing or business. Obviously, look, it's worked out well for you so far, but talk about like how that, like, from family perspective, how everything kind of transpired for you in that situation.
Yeah, so I grew up in a household with 2 lawyers as parents. So you could probably imagine not necessarily the type of pressure that comes with that, but the type of inspiration that comes from that. Because whether it be we're getting ready in the morning when we're all eating breakfast at the breakfast table, and my mom's over there cranking out emails, or my dad's on a phone call when we're driving to work. And so it was really just listening in on all of their phone calls and all their conference calls, and hearing about the type of work that they do every day for almost 22 years of my life. That sort of inspired me to kind of be like, look, this is the type of legacy my parents have laid. Now I should probably, as I grow older, I should look to create my own legacy and make my own legacy. So it really just started as inspiration from my parents. That's where I got a lot of my business savvy. And I did really take it upon myself to find a way to market myself as a Division III athlete. Obviously, we don't get the type of coverage that Ohio State gets, that University of Michigan gets on Saturdays. But we are still very talented individuals. I think coming from the Division III level, they are investing in more of the person rather than the athlete. So it was really important portraying the image that I'm a businessman, essentially. And investing in me, I have to effectively communicate why investing in me would, and having me on the team as a potential asset would be a worthwhile investment. So it was really important understanding business jargon, understanding how to communicate with these executives, CEOs, and entrepreneurs almost on the daily. So it's a great experience, and I've gained a lot of hands-on type of experience as well.
Yeah, that's really cool stuff. That's excellent. I think the one thing I want to talk about is at least applying it to Amherst, obviously. I think, obviously you've done all this stuff in your gap semester. And I guess, what have you, I don't know, I guess you've been trying to teach your teammates this kind of stuff, or even trying to apply it somehow when you've been back on campus. Talk a little bit about what you've been trying to do here, maybe from that standpoint, because if people are interested in that NIL space, at Amherst, kind of what they should look into or how you've applied it. So I think that would be pretty interesting for people to know.
Yeah, as I've returned to Amherst, I've had a lot of folks, give me a couple jabs saying like, "Oh, it's the king of Division III NIL." But at the same time, a lot of folks have reached out to me for some advice, for some tips and tricks on how to get into NIL. And that's something I've been doing for 7 months. Almost every single day, I have somebody new reach out to me asking for advice. So being back on campus really makes a world of a difference because I can sit down with these folks and tell them, how they should go about it, how they should market themselves, types of content they should look to create. And I've had a lot of the first years on the football team just kind of after an interesting interaction with Coach Mills. We were all sitting in a meeting, and Coach Mills was just going over the basic stuff, how to prepare for weekends, what it's going to be looking like once we start traveling and such. And then he goes, there's this elephant in the room. Betsy, how about you stand up and talk to folks a little bit about NIL? And so I was put on the spot, and that's when a lot of the first years pulled me aside after the meeting, and they're like, "Hey, maybe we could talk sometime. Maybe we could, pick your brain a little bit." But now being back on campus, I think I have learned a lot in my time away. I think I've learned how to be a leader in an industry that's still relatively new. Even just last night in our kickoff CACSAC meeting, prior to NIL, I feel like my public speaking abilities were a little, of course you're going to get that anxiety, but I remember just going up there because I am on the e-board. I remember going up there and I was filled with confidence to be, speaking in a room full of people. So, and that, of course, coming from experience appearing on podcasts, and of course, this is my first in-person one, so thank you for having me on. But yeah, it's just the types of experience that you gain conversing in, business conversations and understanding how to be a leader as well. And so I think that does apply to the football team a little bit, and trying to, sometimes when we're down, it just takes that little bit of motivation from the sideline that can get the offense on the field cranked up. So I think there's definitely some applicable strategies that I've learned from my semester away.
Yeah, that's great. So let's get into obviously the football team itself, right? Look, you guys have a big game coming up at G against Middlebury, which obviously you guys are going to be excited about. Obviously, it's a really exciting season. I've talked to a bunch of the guys; they're really excited, especially for you, right? Obviously, coming up at Gap semester, you're probably super stoked to be back and playing here. And I think the one thing I want to ask is, one, how is the Gap semester helped prepare you as a leader? I think that's the first question I want to ask. And second, what are you most excited about for the football season coming up? So take that away, however you want.
I think the gap semester preparing me as a leader in that sense, it allowed me to have a lot of time with myself and have conversations with myself about who do I think Jack Betts is? Obviously my time at college has been not your typical time at college. I've spent actually more time off of campus than on campus, which, that's just how the dice rolls sometimes. But it's also taught me to, not take the present for granted. I think once I came back onto campus, I was just, overcome with emotion that I'm finally back here. And, a lot of the seniors, a lot of the fifth year seniors who came back, I have this motivation that, obviously I want to, succeed for myself, but I also want to find success in order to, make those guys happy. So it's, not taking the present for granted, obviously being away from campus for so long. But I think it's also about, being alone with yourself. You learn a lot about yourself. And not only in the mental part, but also in the physical division. I wasn't taking any classes, so I basically wake up, get some breakfast, do a little work on NIL, and then the entire afternoon I would spend either going down to the park, going to the gym, and just preparing myself physically for a 9-week season, which it does take a toll on your body, and preseason definitely has done so. So I think I took full advantage of it in preparing myself mentally, but also physically.
Yeah, I think that obviously, look, I a bunch of guys on our team took a gap year back in the COVID year, and I can speak to that like the grueling part of the season you have to really prepare yourself for when you're out of the season. But I'm obviously really stoked to watch you guys play, and I think it's going to be hopefully a great season for you guys. So I'm excited for that. But I think the last thing I wanted you to have the floor for is to talk about your NIL Academy. So I know you've been really excited about this, obviously. So I think it's a good chance to talk about it a little bit. What you're trying to get out of it. I also think talking about, I mean, I actually had a chance to, before when I got a chance to see I was interviewing you, I actually visited the website that you made too. So talk a little bit about kind of both things, right? Like kind of what you're trying to get through the website and what you're trying to get through the NIL Academy that you're trying to make, and how you think those can be successful avenues for not just you, but for people looking to get in the NIL space.
I think when I began in January, I started looking for strategies in which I could set myself apart from the group who are applying to all these campaigns, who are reaching out to all of these brands. And so one of the ways that I set myself apart initially was I kind of coined this thing called the NIL cover letter. And what that is essentially applying to a job. It's a job resume, basically. And it has, what I'm majoring in, my sub-focus, GPA, my extracurricular activities, my work history, and all of that. And so to supplement that, I decided, what if I had something to send to these brands where everything that I've done so far, whether it be my past work in NIL, my past work in community service, what if that was all consolidated into just one space? And so I spoke to my parents about it, and they said, look, we all think it's a great idea if I have a website. We really do. And I've gotten a lot of great feedback from these brands saying that they rarely see not only just an athlete in general, but they rarely see a Division III athlete who has a website and who has, found so much success in the NIL space. And so, basically using that to jump off of, in April or May, I believe, I kind of had this thought swirling in my mind, which following all the success that I've gained and the platform that I've created, I started having a lot of people reach out to me asking for advice and asking for if I have any opportunities available for them to get into NIL, and asking for tips and tricks, of course. And so I thought to myself, what if I had some sort of academy, some sort of school in which athletes could sign up for it, and I could spread all this knowledge that I've gained and all the resources that I have at my disposal. And so then as we move further into the summer, of course, as you know, I'm very proud of my Cherokee heritage. I reached out to Indiansports.com's founder, Brent Cowie. And Indiansports.com, for those of you who don't know, it's basically the ESPN for everything Indigenous athletics. It's a really phenomenal platform. Been going strong since the early 2000s, if I'm not mistaken. So I reached out to him asking for his help. The primary focus was going to be helping other Indigenous American athletes who were interested in getting into the space of NIL. But it slowly expanded into a class, really an inaugural class of 21 athletes, which of course I wore number 21 on the field. And we've got athletes from all over the country. I've got a softball player from the University of Washington, but I've also got a track and field thrower from Missouri Valley State University. So I think the spread of athletes really speaks to the opportunities that are available at every single level. And all these athletes in my academy, the great majority of them have closed deals. So that's just what keeps me going every single day when they reach back out to me and saying, Jack, the way that you've helped me has helped me got a deal. And that gets me out of bed every morning and continues to push me to, not only try and get things for myself, but I understand all the opportunities that I've created for myself. I can sort of be like, hey, reach out to this brand, I'm in with them. So maybe you'll get an opportunity. So I'm really grateful for the platform and all of these athletes that I'm able to help.
Yeah, no, I think that's just awesome stuff. Obviously, like I'm not as well in the NIL space, but I think obviously following a little bit of what you did this summer, it kind of, I think, opened up a lot of doors for a lot of people. And seeing that it's not just a Division I space, which I think a lot of people sit there and say like, okay, you're here at a Division I school, you're going to get X, Y, and Z deals because you're going to be on TV. But the fact is, like, at Amherst, obviously, look, we're all, educated, very smart people at Amherst, and across the world, everyone's getting, they have a great opportunity to learn the NIL. But I think the fact is, have the ability to just kind of think for yourself and figure out what you want to do is really cool. So, I really want to thank you for coming on, Jack. I was really excited to get this started. I mean, I talked in the summer about it. So, Obviously, I know you're very busy during football, so I really appreciate you coming on, and wish you the best of luck with this and the season, man. I'm really excited for you guys too. So
Thank you. Yeah, I remember that first conversation we had when you reached out. I was actually in Colorado again.
yeah,
Funny enough, but I'm really excited to see it come to fruition, and maybe we'll hop back on later this season and we can talk about sort of a mid-season review. That's only, of course, if I'm invited.
oh, of course, you're definitely going to come back at some point. So I'm excited. But thank you so much, man, and best of luck there. That's Jack Betts,
Thank you.
and this is Schrett Stakes. Have a good one, guys.